Welcome to the critique. Today's submitted material is a script analyzing the fallout between conservative media figures Brett Cooper and Candace Owens, culminating in a reflection on journalistic integrity.
Yeah, it's quite a heavy topic.
It really is. And the material makes a strong case for evaluating media figures by highlighting the concept of a litmus test for integrity, which brings us directly to our first major area of focus regarding the overarching structure.
Right, the structure is definitely where we need to start.
Because, reading through it, it feels like a mystery novel where the detective doesn't reveal the motive until after the suspect is already in jail.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, I can see what you're going for here with the build-up. Let's see how we can strengthen this placement of the thesis.
Absolutely. So the closing argument proposing a litmus test for presenter integrity is a profound conceptual anchor that currently arrives too late to effectively frame the overall narrative.
Way too late.
Right. The weakness here is that the script spends the vast majority of its runtime just, summarizing the drama.
Yeah, the business separations and all that.
Exactly. The separations, the Gen Z audience reactions. It does all of this before finally introducing its most original and compelling insight.
Which is that true integrity requires risking your own audience to tell hard truths.
Precisely. And by placing this at the very end, the thesis feels like an afterthought rather than the driving analytical force of the piece.
It's like you've done all the work but hit the best tool in the shed.
Yeah, so my suggestion is to reposition the litmus test concept to the very beginning. You need to use it to serve as the framing device for the entire...
To evaluate all the events through that lens.
Exactly. You want to evaluate all the subsequent events and figures through this specific critical lens. For concrete examples, you could open the script by defining this litmus test up front.
Like a direct statement.
Yeah. For example, you could write, how do we know if a media figure has true integrity? The ultimate test is whether they are prepared to speak hard truths that might alienate their own audience. Let's apply this test to the recent Daily Wire fallout.
Oh, that's punchy.
Or, alternatively, you could pose it as a question to the listener right after introducing Brett Cooper's silence.
Right.
Keep in mind, these are just a few out of all possible ways to front-load the thesis. The point is just getting it up there early.
That makes sense, but let me push back a little here. If we put the thesis at the start, do we risk losing the narrative suspense of the personal drama between Brett, Candace, and Jeremy that initially draws the listener in?
Well, that's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered that the thesis actually creates more suspense.
More suspense? How so?
Because you're giving the audience a framework. It allows them to actively play jury.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they're sitting there weighing Jeremy's business moves and Brett's silence against this newly established standard, rather than just passively listening to gossip.
Oh, wow, yeah. That totally shifts the dynamic from just recapping drama to an active, like a moral audit for the listener.
Exactly.
Which kind of bridges us to the next point. Once the author establishes this strong, framing voice at the beginning, they need to maintain that commanding presence throughout the middle of the piece.
Yes, absolutely crucial.
Because right now, that middle section is just dominated by other people's words. Let's look closely at the section discussing the Substack article and Jeremy's interview.
Right, it gets really dense there.
Yeah, as I understand it from the notes, the argument here is that Brett abandoned her principles, but the block quotes are just massive. How do we manage that?
Well, relying on extensive, uninterrupted blocks of text from external sources severely bogs down the pace and dilutes the author's voice.
It totally drowns him out.
It really does. The weakness is that the draft hands over the narrative reins entirely to Jeremy Boring's lengthy interview and the Gen Z fan Substack post for massive stretches.
Yeah, you just kind of zone out as a listener.
Exactly. The audience loses the creator's distinct point of view and editorial guidance because they are buried under unbroken paragraphs of other people's words.
So what's the fix here?
The suggestion is to intersperse the long quotes with active synthesis. You have to break the excerpts into smaller, digestible fragments and insert analytical commentary in between to guide the listener's interpretation.
So don't just dump the whole quote at once.
Right. For concrete examples, instead of reading the entire Substack post about Brett's silence in one go, just read the first part about her OG hardball persona that attracted Gen Z.
And then jump in and explain why that matters.
Yes. Pause to validate how this specific demographic connection worked, then introduce the quote about her silence regarding Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson as a specific turning point.
analyzing why that silence feels like complicity.
Exactly. Before moving to the next text, you could also paraphrase Jeremy's long comments on non-disparagement agreements and only quote his exact words regarding audience attachment.
Oh, that's smart. Save the direct quotes for the most impactful statements.
Yeah. And these are just a few approaches to reclaiming the narrative pacing. Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of the listener's attention span?
Oh, that is so true, because in audio, if someone is just reading a wall of text for 2 minutes, I'm checking my phone, I'm looking at traffic, I'm gone.
You completely lose the thread.
Breaking up the quotes highlights the author's role as a synthesizer of complex information. It keeps the audience actively engaged rather than passively listening to a reading.
It validates why they clicked on your audio in the first place instead of just reading the original article.
Exactly. Now, moving on, because once we have a strong framing thesis at the start and a well-paced, synthesized middle, we have to look at how this carefully constructed argument crashes into the final segment of the script.
The outro promo. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so what I really like about this part is the underlying passion, but the transition to the documentary promo feels abrupt.
Very abrupt.
Like, we go from YouTuber drama to a documentary about a 3,000-year-old threat. Doesn't that sudden shift disrupt the listener's experience?
It absolutely does. The abrupt transition from a nuanced discussion on media integrity into the sudden promotional segment about Amalek creates a jarring thematic whiplash.
Whiplash is the perfect word for it.
Yeah, the weakness is that the script builds a highly grounded, contemporary case about parasocial relationships, rebranding for clicks, and holding peers accountable.
Very modern, very internet-focused.
Right, but then suddenly pivots into a highly spiritual, historically dense promo about a spiritual virus without any connective tissue.
It feels like an ad just slapped onto the end.
Exactly. The sudden shift makes the promo feel bolted on, undermining the seriousness of the preceding analysis.
So how do they fix that crash?
The suggestion is to bridge the gap by explicitly drawing a thematic parallel between the documentary subject matter and the moral decay in modern media discussed in the main script.
Connect the two worlds.
Right. Or build a definitive auditory and scripting wall to separate the editorial content from the ad.
Give them some breathing room.
Yes. For concrete examples, if you want to integrate it, transition by saying something like, this question of moral courage and the danger of losing one's principles isn't just a modern media problem. In fact, our new documentary explores Amalek,
Oh, I see where you're going.
a force that whispers morality isn't worth it, which echoes the very media complicity we just discussed.
That's incredibly smooth. It makes the promo feel like the ultimate conclusion to the essay.
Exactly. But if you prefer separation, insert a distinct sign-off for the main essay before announcing, and before we go, I want to share a new JTV Plus documentary.
Just clearly marking the territory.
Right, these are just a couple of the many ways you could smooth out this ending. Is there a risk that focusing solely on the contemporary drama might overlook the opportunity to make a much deeper philosophical point using the documentary's themes?
Oh, definitely. If they integrate it well, it elevates the whole piece from just internet gossip to a timeless struggle for integrity.
It rewards the listener for paying attention.
Exactly. Well, we've covered some fantastic ground today. Let's just quickly summarize the actionable steps for the script.
Sounds good.
First, front-load the litmus test concept to serve as a framing thesis for the whole piece. Don't hide it at the end.
Deputize the audience as a jury right away.
Yep. Second, chop up the massive block quotes from Jeremy and the Substack article, interspersing them with original analysis to maintain pacing and voice.
Stay in the driver's seat.
And third, build a thematic bridge or a clear boundary between the modern media critique and the historical documentary promo at the end to avoid that whiplash.
Make it a deliberate choice.
Exactly. You know, the raw material here is deeply thought-provoking. It's really strong, and it just needs a bit of structural restructuring to maximize its impact.
It has so much potential.
It really does. We highly encourage the creator to revise their script using these notes and submit it back in again for more feedback.
Yes, we'd love to see the next draft.
Thanks for tuning in, and keep writing.